Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Look, today we are fundamentally shifting how you look at your beloved daily coffee habit. If you're someone who relies on a morning cup, or let's be honest, maybe a few throughout the day, we are taking a really fascinating journey straight into your own head. We're going to decode exactly what happens chemically every single time you take a sip.
Picture this, and I'm betting it's painfully relatable. It's 2 p.m. You've already had 3 cups of coffee today. You took that last sip hoping to feel like a superhero, totally ready to conquer the second half of your workday. But instead of feeling energized, you feel like you're walking waist deep through a thick mental fog. Your heart might literally be racing a mile a minute in your chest, yet somehow your brain is just entirely offline. You're physically wired, but mentally exhausted. So why exactly does this happen?
Well, the crucial point is this. Coffee doesn't actually give you energy. It borrows it. I know. Kind of mind-blowing, right? But this is the core thesis of our entire explainer today. We all have this profound misconception that caffeine is like putting gas in a car, just giving us fresh, new fuel. But the biological reality, it operates a lot more like a loan. And eventually, that loan always comes due. Today, we're going to uncover the exact science behind this transaction, and more importantly, we're going to reveal the 3 major coffee mistakes you are likely making right now that are secretly making you more tired and damaging your long-term focus. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the 2 p.m. coffee crash. Second, how caffeine actually blocks sleepiness. Third, 3 major coffee mistakes. And finally, your brand new caffeine action plan. Part 1, the 2 p.m. coffee crash.
So, to solve the problem of that heavy afternoon fog, we really have to understand the baseline biology of why you hit that wall in the first place. And it all starts with a fascinating little chemical called adenosine. Think of adenosine as your brain's internal hourglass. From the very second you wake up in the morning, adenosine begins to naturally build up and accumulate in your brain. As the day goes on, the levels just get higher and higher. The more adenosine you have floating around in your system, the sleepier and more fatigued you naturally feel. It's your body's built-in mechanism, working exactly as nature intended, by the way, to make sure you eventually feel tired enough to go to sleep at night and recharge.
Moving to part 2, how caffeine blocks sleepiness. Now, this is where the mischief of your daily cup of coffee actually happens. To really understand how caffeine naturally blocks your sleepiness, imagine your brain has all these dedicated parking spots. These are your neural receptors. In a normal brain, the sleepiness chemical we just talked about, adenosine, finds an empty parking spot, pulls in, and tells your brain, hey, it's time to feel tired. But caffeine, it's remarkably similar in shape and size to adenosine. So when you drink coffee, the caffeine acts like this incredibly aggressive valet parker. It rushes in and completely steals all those open parking spots. Caffeine essentially slaps a blindfold on your brain so it literally can't see how tired it actually is. The adenosine is still there floating around building up naturally, but it has absolutely nowhere to park. So you simply don't feel tired.
But here is the catch. We call this the sleep debt. Remember how we said that caffeine borrows energy? Well, caffeine doesn't last forever. Eventually, it gets broken down and it leaves those receptor parking spots. And when that blindfold finally comes off, oh boy, all of the adenosine that has been patiently waiting and accumulating all day long suddenly rushes the parking lot all at once. Every single receptor gets flooded simultaneously. That sudden, overwhelming wave of sleepy chemicals is exactly what triggers that massive, dreaded 2 p.m. crash.
Let's look at part 3, 3 major coffee mistakes. Now that we've got the heavy science out of the way, I'm willing to bet almost everyone watching has fallen victim to this next part. Mistake number 1, the immediate morning cup. You wake up, you drag yourself to the kitchen, and you immediately pour a cup of coffee. Sound familiar? Well, the problem here is that your body's natural wake-up hormone, cortisol, is at its absolute highest peak right when you wake up. Cortisol is literally designed to wake you up organically and get you alert. Pouring caffeine into the mix while your cortisol is already naturally peaking is totally redundant. Your brain doesn't even get to use the caffeine efficiently, which means you are essentially just building up a massive tolerance without getting any of the actual benefits. So what's the fix here? The golden rule is a 90 to 120 minute delay. You really need to wait an hour and a half to 2 hours after waking up before you take that first sip of caffeine. Why? Because this absolutely vital delay time allows your natural cortisol to peak, do its job, and clear out. More importantly, it gives your brain time to naturally flush out any lingering adenosine from the night before, meaning when you finally do introduce caffeine later in the morning, it works incredibly well. Moving right along to mistake number 2, the afternoon cup. This is the classic knee-jerk reaction to that 2 p.m. crash we talked about earlier.
You feel exhausted, so you reach for another coffee just to power through the rest of the workday. But there is a massive hidden danger here that is secretly destroying your recovery.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why. Caffeine has a chemical half-life of about 5 to 6 hours. So let's say you drink a cup of coffee at 4 p.m. to cure your afternoon slump. By 7 p.m., your body is still heavily processing it. And by 10 p.m., right when you might be getting ready for bed, a full half of that caffeine is still actively sitting in your brain, blocking those sleep receptors. Even if you're one of those people who swears, oh, I can drink a coffee with dinner and sleep just fine, well, science shows that the remaining caffeine severely ruins your deep sleep architecture, which leaves you, you guessed it, completely exhausted the next day.
Which leads us directly into mistake number 3, the habitual increase. This is all about long-term tolerance, and it completely explains why you probably feel like you need more and more coffee just to achieve a basic baseline of functioning over the years.
Because you're constantly flooding your brain with caffeine and aggressively blocking that adenosine, you enter this vicious cycle. Your brain realizes what's happening and physically adapts by creating more adenosine receptors to compensate for the caffeine. Since you now have way more parking spots, your body suddenly requires even more coffee just to block them all. And because you literally have extra receptors waiting around for adenosine, your baseline tiredness permanently increases whenever you don't have caffeine. You have physically rewired your brain to be more tired on a daily basis. Crazy, right? Let's move to part 4 and see how this all builds into your new caffeine action plan. Now that you understand the underlying chemistry, here is the protocol to actually fix these habits. Avoid that afternoon fog and honor your natural biology. First, delay that morning cup. Wait 90 to 120 minutes after waking up to let your cortisol peak naturally. Second, enforce a strict 2 p.m. caffeine cutoff. Seriously, no exceptions. This ensures the caffeine fully clears your system so you can actually get deep, restorative sleep. And third, prioritize daily hydration. Drinking plenty of water flushes out your system and aids all your natural biological processes. Remember, coffee is a magnificent tool, absolutely, but it should never be a biological crush. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are you ready to stop using coffee as a crutch? When you use it right by actually understanding your brain's natural rhythms, your brain will absolutely thank you for it. Look, if you found this breakdown of your brain chemistry fascinating and you want to understand more about that wake-up hormone we mentioned earlier, I highly recommend checking out our explainer on how cortisol affects your health. It is the absolute perfect next step